In part 1 of this series, I installed the YSS rear shock with the hydraulic spring preload. So now it's time to take it for the first test ride. Will it be a success, or have I just wasted my money? After all, I've put up with the standard shock for 4 years, why would I bother changing it? Well, for one thing, I've known from previous experience that changing the shocks on the bike really makes it feel like a new bike again. But I'm hitting all these potholes and not finding the back end performing the way I'd like. It's just too harsh. On install, I set the damping right in the middle of the range. But I'm feeling this is too harsh, so I'm backing the damping right off to its softest setting. With the damping on its softest setting now, I can feel the difference immediately. I can go over those small bumps and I hardly feel it with the back wheel. But yet, on the mid-corner bump, I can still feel the damping working correctly. If I'd done this on a new bike, I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference very easily. But because I've ridden this for so many kilometres, it's fairly easy to feel small differences in the suspension. As I said in the previous video, I'm nowhere near an expert, and all I can tell you is what I'm feeling from the bike, and that is that the back end just feels a lot more, taut, stable, not harsh over those short little bumps, but yet still feels really planted on the mid-corner bump when you come around a sharp corner and you hit that mid-corner bump that squeezes the suspension down, but now it feels really planted and firm, but not harsh. It's interesting that now I'm feeling that the front end really isn't tuned the same as the rear. I'm hoping that the new valves might sort that out. Whenever I test a change, I have to keep in mind the fact that there's always that placebo effect. That theory of, well, I spent all this money, it must be better. So I'm trying to keep an open mind, and over time, I guess my ideas on whether I've spent the money wisely or foolishly will become more clear. But for the present, I'm liking what I'm feeling. I'm going out of my way to ride in those sharp, choppy potholes. I'm feeling it through the front end, but not through the back tyre. So, what's the verdict? First of all, I need to say that the standard rear shock is not all that bad. It's certainly better than I thought it was going to be when I first bought the bike. And I've been putting up with it for 4 years, so, how bad can it be? The spring is too soft for my weight, but that's, how it is for most bikes when you buy them off the shelf. They tend to be sprung for about a 75, 80 kilo person. And I'm, 100 plus my gear. So what's different with the new shock? Well, first off, I've got a spring that's made for my weight. So it's properly sprung. I can get the right static and active sag in it. Secondly, I've got the hydraulic adjuster so that I can wind up the spring when I carry stuff on the back of the bike. And when we go camping, if you see my other videos, we carry a lot of stuff. I've got my panniers and top box and tent, etc. all on the bike. The third thing is the damping. The damping is definitely better than on the standard shock. As you saw, I found that I needed to reduce the damping, and in fact I've got it on the lowest setting now. I may well increase that as the shock wears in, but with it on the lowest setting, I'm getting a nice smooth ride over harsh, bumpy road. And that was really where I noticed the old shock the most. Remember, I don't know what I'm talking about, but this is sort of how I would explain it. Think of those short potholes as having really sharp edges, and the wheel falling down into that and hitting each one of those edges and jarring up through the frame. With the new shock and the improved damping, it feels like this. The bumps no longer feel as though they've got sharp edges, and the wheel tends to just roll into and out of them without that harshness coming through the frame. The old shock was fine really for a damping point of view for undulating road where you're riding fast and you're getting that, that up and down movement. It wasn't too bad there, but it was those high speed or short sharp bumps that the damping was being let down. So there you have it. Should I recommend this to everyone else? Well, no, not really. I think that if you're only going to have the bike for a short time and you don't do long rides, don't bother changing the shock. If you're a big lump like me, and if you either carry a pillion or you carry gear occasionally, then having that hydraulic preload is really useful. And also, if you really can't cope with the way that the damping works on the original shock, well, I guess you could consider a new shock as well. But the fact is, they're not cheap. So, I bought a budget bike. I expected budget suspension and got it. But even then, it's better than I expected. But I'm happy with the new shock. I've only gone for one ride so far, but from previous experience, I can feel what it's going to be over time. So what's next? Well, I haven't put the valves in the front shocks yet. I wanted to feel the rear shock, the front shocks. So what's next? Well, I haven't put the valves in the front forks yet. That's a job for another day. I wanted to test the bike just with the rear shock first, just to feel what that's like. I can certainly feel a difference now between hitting the bump with the front wheel and then hitting that same bump with the rear wheel. It's chalk and cheese. I virtually don't feel those short, harsh bumps through the rear wheel anymore, but I can certainly still feel it through the front. So it'll be interesting to see whether those valves actually make that difference. That's for the next episode.